Welcome to the Traverse Area District Library for the GTAGS meeting of September 2023. I'm Catherine Carrier. I work in the reference department upstairs, and I have an interest in genealogy. So people usually say, wait, Catherine needs to help you. Any rate, today I wanted to let you know that on the table in the back is the October list of classes that the American Ancestors is offering. I have marked the ones that are free and the ones that have a cost available to them. Some of the free ones are the Odyssey of Isaac Allerton, Rebel Pilgrim, and New Jersey Resources for Family History Research. So they go all over the place. So pick that up in the back if you're interested. And they are webinars. They're, do it from home in your jammies. The other thing I wanted to highlight from our collection is a donation from GTAGS for the National Genealogy Society series of state research guides. And these are really great if you're running up against a brick wall or it's an area you have nothing that you know anything about. This is a good resource for getting those titles. And if we don't have what you're looking for in our collection, we may be able to borrow it from another library in the state through interlibrary loan. And there are a couple of genealogy libraries that do lend their second copies. So give it a shot if you don't find what you're looking for. Okay, thank you very much. And on to your presenter. Yes. Oh. Okay. Jenny was just reminding me that if you have a title that we don't have in the collection, let us know, and we will let the society know, because the society buys books like this for the collection. Okay, thank you.
Welcome, everyone. It's going to be brief this afternoon. I'm going to introduce Bonnie Sheely, our Grand Traverse County Clerk.
I'm just going to kind of wing it. I don't really usually care too much. So, gotta get my glasses out though. For those of you that have never met me, Bonnie Sheely, Grand Traverse County Clerk. I've worked for the county for over 37 years. Worked in the courts for a few years, 11. And been with the county clerk ever since. I've been the elected county clerk since 2013. I won the election in 2012. So still loving my job, still here. So we're going to talk a little bit about genealogy, which is the study of family history and ancestry. Michigan is rich in history and cultural diversity, offers a wealth of resources, and you will see inside that pamphlet, we have different places that you can contact to get certain records. On the very back, it shows how far back, let's see. Yeah, on the back, it shows how far back the county clerk in Grand Traverse records go. So we have births going all the way back to 1856, deaths going back to 1867, and marriages going back to 1853. We actually have records going back farther than the state has, because they didn't, I don't know if they didn't have a place to, at that time, to deposit them. But we had these, it's kind of, if you love history, it's kind of cool to go, but my vault is not open to the public, but for me to go into my vault, and I have big old library books that they would go around, I don't know, maybe once a year, go to the houses. Was anybody born? Anybody die? You know, get that information, and they would write it all into this big old library book. the county, oh, let's see, the county was established way back in the 1800s. Show you here, 1853, around 1853. The Grand Traverse County, it used to be part of Omina. It was called Omina. It was part of Mackinac. And then the city of Traverse City was one of the first that was established way back in, let's see, what does it say here? 1881. But in 1856, it was enlarged to include Benzie and Leelanau. So now we've got Grand Traverse, Benzie, Leelanau is one big, huge county. So we do have some records that it looks like they were born in Benzie, and why would Grand Traverse have those? And that's why, because we used to be one big one for a while there. So in 1863, Leelanau organized, and in 1869, Benzie organized. The Grand Traverse County Board of Supervisors was the supervisor in each township. And that, what our Board of Commissioners are now, was called the Board of Supervisors. And they handled all the business back then until, man, I can't even remember the year. There was a lot of them up until 19 something. I should know that. So we have a lot of those old records too. All of the Board of Commissioner actions since Grand Traverse County became a county. So we have all what were they doing? I mean, at one time I was looking through these old records and they were building the courthouse. And of course, we've been around since then, and they were fighting. And the prosecutor was gonna throw the clerk in jail because the clerk would not write the checks because he thought something was wrong with it or whatever. So, you find these weird things in history where in all those Board of Commissioner books, births, of course, are not open to the public unless they're 100 years old. And then you could purchase one. You can't just look at it. Deaths and marriages, if they're 75 years old, you could look at them without purchasing, but you could purchase them at any time, deaths and marriages. Just talking to Glenn about a marriage a long time ago, and I'm thinking, he said they didn't have any record of that marriage. Well, back in the day, and it still happens today, but very infrequently because society has changed. But if somebody needed to get married and they were young, they would have what's called a secret marriage. And the county clerk doesn't have any records of secret marriages. Those are all handled by the probate court. So they would go to the probate judge, request if they could get a secret marriage. The judge would grant a secret marriage, and they would keep those on file. So we've had people come to us and say, I got married in Grand Traverse, and come to find out it was a secret marriage, and that's why we didn't have it. Right next to us is the Register of Deeds, and I'm not a clerk register. Some are. Throughout the state, there are clerk registers who handle all of the vital records plus the land records, but we are separated here in Grand Traverse. So we have our Register of Deeds has all of the records. I don't know how, probably back even farther than before we were even a county, because you had to know who owned the land. Her records are open to the public. You can go in, and I see people, researchers coming in there and looking up the records. Like I said, I don't know a lot about the Register of Deeds, but they are another resource. I got a copy of a deed once that was really old, and it said, and you know how they go this many degrees and this many degrees, and you can't, it's Greek when you're describing something. Well, this one was like, you go to the tree that's gnarled here, and you go to this barn, and you know, I mean, and it was actually on file, a deed like that way back when, because they didn't do, I don't know, the degrees. Let's see, besides all our vital records and the Board of Commissioner records that are open to the public, we have business registrations going back quite a ways. Veterans records are not open to the public. We have a lot of veterans discharge papers. Those are interesting way back when. The ones that you get now, they're like just a sheet of paper and it just has, you know, the information it needs. Well, a long time ago, they used to do these great big, huge ones that are in libraries and they had this eagle on them. And it's really cool. My oldest marriage book, you open it up, I call it the bat book because it's just only this big and it's really creaky. And when they did a marriage license, it just said, so-and-so married so-and-so on this day. And they just wrote it in there and signed it. And that was how they recorded marriages. That was a marriage license back then. And, you know, the date they applied and everything. So I'm so used to seeing records. I don't know what I'll do if I ever retire. I can't find them anymore. Let's see, what else do we have? We have so much stuff in our office. I am the clerk to the circuit court. So I have all the court cases way back. They're on microfilm. The current ones are electronically filed, but we have all of the criminal records and civil records over 25,000 are all circuit court too. We also handle all the family court. Juvenile records obviously are not open to the public, but a lot of these other records are. We have an online website that we had some glitches with when we switched over to a new software program. I think it's all okay now. Let me know if you can't get into it. What it has out there is you can see the birth and death indexes. You won't see the document. You'd have to purchase the document if you wanted to see it or come view it if it's over 75 years old. I put as much as I can on my website. Just to make it easier for people, they don't have to call then. They'll look up and say, well, it doesn't look like they got married in Grand Traverse or applied for a marriage license in Grand Traverse. If you call any of the surrounding areas, they'll say, oh, they probably died in Grand Traverse. Oh, they were probably married in Grand Traverse. Oh, they were probably born in Grand Traverse because we're the hub of lower northern Michigan. You know, we've got the big hospital. So we file a ton of records, whereas like Leland might file 5 births a year. And we're filing thousands, obviously, because people are having babies, usually at the hospital. There are home births too that happen, and that's what they record over in Leelanau, as a few of the home births. We have all the contracts that the county has entered into. So like I was doing some research on the medical care facility, trying to figure out way back when did it start? What happened? For the Board of Commissioners, they wanted that information. Well, the county clerk has it. The county clerk has almost everything to do with a record in Grand Traverse County. So, and most of it is open to the public. So you're looking up marriage licenses, death certificates. We provide those. Let's see, what else do we do? Elections. I have all the election canvases too, all the way back to the beginning of elections. And they're kind of cool when you look at really old ones, like who was it that was running? Abraham Lincoln or somebody? I was like, wow, look at this. You know, so those are all records and the canvases are open to the public. Yes.
I just had a comment because both my great-grandparents. And it turned out back in the day that the priest was a transient. He traveled around and he came to his house and Traverse City and then he traveled up into this compound and that's where
They filed it up there.
but they were actually,
Yeah.
so if you're looking locally, that
Yeah. So you're supposed to apply for the license in the county that you live in. If you live in 2 different counties, you need to apply in one or the other.
what did they even have back in like
Yes.
they did.
Yeah. So repeat what part? Oh, I'm sorry. We're recording?
Yeah.
She asked if there was she couldn't find the marriage license, and the priest actually went around, was a mobile transient priest, and he filed it in Leelanau County. Now they could have been living in Leelanau County. So they weren't living in Leelanau County, they were living in Grand Traverse, but it was filed in Leelanau. But back then, Grand Traverse, Leelanau, and Benzie were all mushed together. They were all one county. So Leelanau probably has some of the records from Grand Traverse. Grand Traverse probably has some of the records from Leelanau way back in those late 1860s, 1870s. Usually you apply for the marriage license in the county that you live in, and then you could get married anywhere in the state, and then it has to come back to the county that you pulled that license from. Out of state people have to apply for the license in the county that they are getting married in. So if they apply in Grand Traverse County and they go get married in Leelanau County and they're both from New York, well, that license isn't valid because you needed to get married in Grand Traverse. So we always ask our out-of-state ones, where exactly are you having your ceremony? Not that we're going to crash your wedding, but we need to know exactly where. So because when you go toward Leelanau, a lot of people don't realize that 72 or whatever that is, that's the county line. And they're like, yeah, I live in Traverse City because my mailing address is Traverse City. Well, you live in Leelanau. So, yeah. What else? Any questions? Her question is, what's the easiest way to search the database? It doesn't make any difference in the, it'll come up. You can't, my older records, I take that back. You can't search by first name on my old system. The newer system, you should put the last name in. There's two, yes, you need to put the last name in. You need to know the last name. Sure. I'm trying to think of my vital records. I think you could put first and then last in the newer one. And the older one, it was last. We've been changing our software. We've gotten so much new software in the last couple of years. My head is spinning. We're trying to get everything electronically, all our old records electronically put in so that we can issue them easier. We're trying to get all of our indexes online. I don't know, it's a big project. Yes. So our question is, does every county clerk handle everything the same way? We have to follow the law. The law is very specific on what we can and can't do and how to issue vital records, how to store them, how to protect them. There is a little leeway with certain things like marriage licenses, because like if I was going to correct a marriage license, I don't charge somebody to file the petition. Others make them file a court case to correct a marriage license. So you have a little bit more leeway with marriage licenses because the state handles births and deaths, and they're the main one. So we used to physically send them to the state. Now everything's electronic. They are the main birth and death, but the counties are in control of marriage licenses, and we just send them copies. So it is the county clerk's prerogative how she handles it. That's correct. The Vital Records Office down at the state, and they're all laws, Michigan compiled laws. Everything we do with vital records, elections, the courts, everything is by statute, and we have to follow those rules and the statutes. We do a few extra things that are not required of the county clerk, like we have notary service, we do passport photos. but those aren't required. But the ones that are, we just follow the law. That's why I tell people if they get upset with me, I said, I am not a lawbreaker. I'm sorry. You want that change? You go get your legislators to change the law, and then I'll do what they say, what the law says. But yeah, it's pretty cut and dry on that. Yes.
Does that mean online, or have you got to go down to your office?
You have to, his question, I don't know if you heard it at the beginning, is he's wondering because the state's recommendation is 75 years or older to view a marriage or death record. You have to come to my office. They will not be put online.
And second half of the question is, says they're less than 75 years old, you can't view them, but you can come down and pay and have a certified copy of it. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Oh, you don't like the law. But the question that pops in my mind, I'm not sure why they came out that said if they were less than 75 years old, you couldn't view them, but yet I can come down and buy one.
The state didn't want you to view them at all. They wanted you to purchase them.
So it was about the money, not about,
I think so.
thank you.
We used to have researchers come in and just pour through our books, but it did take a lot of staff time as they were looking through the books. And then when we were pulling records, because we could only pull a few at a time, well, it would take somebody all day long. But the state, now some county clerks interpret things differently. The state specifically sent me, I asked them to send me that they had to be 75 years. Others are just like, well, we only have a few records here. Go ahead and look at it. That's their choice.
So if I want to come down and to your office and view records for my family, I found on your website that there were family members that I wasn't even aware of. So if I want to see those records, do I have to pay to see the records?
You do not.
Okay, but if I want a copy, then I would have to pay for those.
That's correct.
Yeah, that
And
was
we
my
don't
question.
we don't pull records between 12 and 2 because we are short staffed, staggering lunches because we are open 8 to 5, but I have to let people go to lunch. So we stagger our lunches so that there's always somebody in the office so we don't have to close the office.
Okay, so a better time would be in the morning to come down? to your
Probably. It's not quite as busy in the morning.
Okay, all right. And the records then, everything you're sending to the state is electronic now? Do you also have to send anything hard copy to them?
Not anymore. I haven't sent any hard copies in a couple of years.
But everything is legal to date.
Well, they actually get the electronic copy. So there's a system called Vera, and the hospital creates the birth certificate, and instead of sending it hard copy like they used to, and then we'd file it, we'd make a copy, we'd send the copies to the state. Now this system, they drop it in, it gets certified, and then we get notice that there's birth records, and then we save them into another vital record system so that we can issue them, and they look like the regular birth certificate now, whereas we used to have to data entry everything that came in hard copy. So death certificates are handled the same way. They come in to us, and we're the ones that are certifying death certificates. They come to us from the funeral home. We look it over, make sure nothing is missing, make sure that all the data is correct as far as we can tell. And then we certify it. Once we certify it, the state gets a copy.
If there's an error on a record that's on your website, how do we let you know?
So, for example, a death certificate, the only way you can get that corrected is go through the funeral home.
And on your index?
Oh, on our index, well, here's the thing, back in years ago, they didn't spell people's names correctly. And we can't change that. We have to put it in exactly the way it came to us, exactly the way they wrote it. Unless, yeah, so like I've seen my grandfather, they didn't know if his name was Dexter Daniel or Daniel Dexter. I mean, in all these different records, they had it in different ways. I looked up records for people and went, I can't change the spelling of this. You can contact the state, but you'd have to come up with, I don't know what kind of proof. And then they would send us a corrected record. But what we have is what we have.
We make. Whenever.
You can just come in. My staff that I have never had researchers in all these last few years, so they would be very surprised and not know what to do with you.
Good, thank you.
So I probably want to be there.
If you come down, can you take photos yourself
No, you cannot.
at all? Oh, okay.
No photos. You can take notes with pencil only. But the we don't want any ink by our records. We don't want them changed. We're very, very protective of our records. Just opening them up to the light and taking pictures can cause some damage because they're very, very old and they're not microfilmed or imaged yet. So
So is your office actually at the governmental center or where are you located?
my office is in the governmental center on the first floor, county clerk. We're open 8 to 5. Yes. Oh, wait for that.
I read in the paper this morning that the Munson was changing locations for births. They're gonna change all their, they're trying to get people to have birth more locally than they do now and have people, instead they come to the big hospital. That's gonna change where all of that stuff is done or sent to you.
I didn't read that, so I don't know.
That's big. And it's.
So they're
it's-
going to encourage somebody that's in Kalkaska to stay in Kalkaska and have that baby.
They're gonna change, yeah, they're gonna change some, the locations and
Yeah.
different kinds of care they provide because they don't have enough staff any longer.
Wow.
Because and the number of inpatients has gone so low as compared to past, that it's a futuristic thing. They've got a big plan now, so it's, all of that's gonna change.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought.
Those poor county clerks that aren't used to it, they're gonna go, what the heck is this?
Who knows how it might come out, by the time it's finished, but.
But those would be Munson facilities where people have.
They will, it's only in Munson facilities.
Yeah, but it is, the location would be Kalkaska, Munsonet, Kalkaska, or Munsonet, wherever they are, because they're all. Yeah,
Changing.
yeah, we're my courts are all electronic. They have been for, I want to say 15 years or more, maybe more. I don't know. I've been around for so long, I can't remember. But everything is filed electronically. We don't have paper except for juvenile filings. But all my civil and criminal are all filed electronically. So we don't have to buy all those big binders that we used to have to buy. And, when they file it, my staff knows how to code it in and it'll shoot to the judge and this will shoot to the probation officer and this will shoot over here to this court person and this will go to the scheduling person. And I mean, everything is just like amazing. You hit the button and shoo. No. But when I say no, we've had faxes come in, but they won't accept case filings by fax at all. You're not allowed to fax or put it in paper. It has to be electronic. So that's the judge's rule. And I can't change the judge's rules. Work with them very closely. And it's the circuit court judges. So. Yes. Yes. Oh, so she's asking, do you have an index for court cases? Yes, we do. You go on to my main website and then you hit circuit and family court records. And then there's a search option and you type it in. You can see the register of action. You don't see the documents, but you see like This is the date something was filed. This is the date this was filed. This is the date this was filed. This is the date this was filed. This is when this was scheduled. All of that is out there on our court records index search. Maybe the 50s and 60s. I don't think it's, I don't remember. Everything's on microfilm, if not imaged. So you would have to pay to get copies of court documents. Yes. That's the key. When you're looking at the register of action, let's say it's a judgment of divorce. That's pretty easy. Civil case. They'll say the first document will be the complaint. And the complaint is saying, I want to get divorced. And then you'll see a lot of other documents and scheduling times and everything. At the end, you'll see judgment of divorce and the date. So if you wanted to get a copy of a judgment of divorce, you could. There is something, legislation though, that's come out. It's called personal protection information is now being certain records you can't see it anymore. Even voter registration, somebody like a judge could say, I need to be private. And we'd have to flag them to be, so the public didn't know, like we get tons of requests for voter registration, right? And it has your name and your address on it. Well, the personal protection legislation actually protects those people so that they don't get that information. Well, some of that stuff is good. Some of the things on death certificates might end up have to be redacted for those people, or they might even, like a marriage license is open to the public, but if this person says I'm one of those protected people, you wouldn't be able to get a copy of it. Her question is there a time limit? This is something new. Would we go back like that? I don't think that would affect your genealogy research. They didn't used to put hardly anything on things anyway. If you've gotten death certificates from a long time ago, there's not a lot on there. If you got a birth certificate, there's even less. I'm like, why would you even want a birth certificate? If the person died, you're going to have a lot more information on the death certificate than on a birth certificate. Because you can order a birth certificate that's over 100 years old. You don't have to be a family member. Anything less than 100 years and it's not yours, you have to produce a death certificate with your request, because we can't give it to you because they're still alive. But the law says that if they're over 100, you can get it. But I think they should change that. People are living past 100. And I wouldn't want them taking my birth certificate if I was 105. But that's the law as it is right now.
When I started doing genealogy up here a number of years ago, about 15 years ago, I was amazed at as you mentioned earlier, how the spellings vary in the same family. And one of the things that the library had was a system where you could put in the date. If you knew the date of a marriage or death, you could put the date in and it would pop right up and you could see what it was. Is there any possibility that your system would be able to function based on date?
Not my old one. I don't think my old one does, but maybe it does. Gosh, we've been using this new one for a long time and it does have that capability. It searches by dates and names. And the old one, I haven't been on the online one for a long time. My AS400, my internal one, yeah, I can search it that way, but try it and see what comes up. They don't have it either?
No, apparently
Oh, the state. Yeah, the library used to have a lot of copies of our marriage and death records and even our birth records, and they had to turn those over. The state did not like that at all. You know who has a lot of old records is the Church of Latter-day Saints. I mean, they go back farther than we do with records. Yes.
In your pamphlet, under local resources is listed the Record Eagle.
Oh, yeah.
Haven't they moved all of their records to NMC? Doesn't NMC?
Oh, I don't know. I know you used to be able to search old Record Eagle's old records and find obituaries and what's odd is if somebody didn't file the record, you just never have the record, like a marriage license. I've had where they forgot to file it. And then it's unless it's filed, it's not legal.
Yeah, a couple years ago, the NMC gave they gave us all of their microfilm. Catherine can probably speak better about it than I can. NMC Library, Osterland went through major renovation and actually moved their facility. And so they downsized what they had as far as the local history collection went. And all of their microfilm, the newspapers and the other stuff that they had came over here. So it is still accessible. And some items from that collection, such as the Shabbytown records, were digitized and are on our website for people to see. But we still have the microfilm. Actually, since I've got the microphone, I have a question. I have a patron who wants an obit if I can find it, and I cannot. The person did die in Grand Traverse County, so can I call your office and find out who the funeral home is so I can call them and see if there actually was an obit in the newspaper and which paper?
Technically, we're not supposed to answer questions over the telephone, but sometimes, I mean, if we didn't have too many, we probably could go pull it and check out the funeral home, tell you which one.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, like I said, we have all the records you could ever want. And the Register of Deeds has the other ones. I have two offices. I have one over here at the Governmental Center, which is my vital records elections. And I have a supervisor and 3 office staff. In my courts, I have, they're over in the Hall of Justice, and I have a supervisor and 5 because they have to go into court a lot. County clerk is required to go to all jury trials. And we send out all the jury notices. And so yeah, that's even a bigger staff than what I have in the vital. Sorry? I hope so. Well, the first time I ran, there were 3 of us every 4 years. And the last couple of times, nobody's run against me. So, yeah, either that or they're going, you're crazy. Who wants to do that job? Especially with elections, the changes in election law are making it really hard next year. But we will push through, make it work. Our question is, what has changed in elections with registering? When you register or when you get your driver's license now, you automatically are registered unless you opt out. Used to be you had to say, I want to opt in. Now you have to say, I want to opt out. You never in Michigan have ever registered with a political party on your voter registration. We don't require that in Michigan. You don't have to say, I used to be a Democrat, now I'm a Republican or anything like that. It's not, voter registration is still secret on however you want to vote. When you register to vote, you have one chance now with proposal 2 that you could say, I always want a ballot sent to me for every election. We never had that before in Michigan. You used to have to physically request it on a piece of paper, on an application, and say, I want a ballot for this coming November election. Now there's an option on that form that says, I always want a ballot without ever asking for it. So if you marked that box, every election you would get a ballot. So don't be confused when the ballot comes, you say, I didn't ask for this because you marked the box. And so it's automatic now that you would get a ballot. We have early voting that's going to be coming up next year, 9 days of early voting. So you can go into one of the vote centers that is your jurisdiction, like City of Traverse City is their own jurisdiction, but East Bay is hosting like 5 different jurisdictions. And you could vote early in those 9 days and put it right into the tabulator. Thing is, if you change your mind, you can't get it back because once it's voted just like on election day. Whereas absentee voting, if your candidate dropped out maybe for some reason, you could go ask to spoil the absentee ballot and then revote an absentee ballot. There's quite a few other changes that came through with proposal 2 that we're just trying to figure out how to make it work because it's different than we've ever had. Our question is, do you have to be a citizen to vote? Absolutely. That is correct. Illegal cannot vote. And if you're legally here, but you're not a citizen, you cannot vote. If you are incarcerated in a prison, you cannot vote. But if you are a felon, but you're out and you've done your time, you can vote. Every state is different. Michigan is different than, I don't know, Arkansas or whatever. I mean, so when someone says felons can't vote, well, sometimes they can. It depends on what state you're in, you know, and they say, well, dead people are voting. Well, if you died, you early voted and then you died, we can't find your ballot. So yeah, that could happen, I guess. Because we can't ever find your ballot. It's not traceable. The stub is taken off and it's anonymous. Our question is, it's more than having just a driver's license. They can't register to vote if they are not a citizen. If they do, and they used to accidentally get registered to vote at the Secretary of State every once in a while, if they vote, they would be prosecuted. So I did have one where somebody accidentally registered, didn't know they registered to vote because at the Secretary of State, they used to have that, oh, here, check this, do this. They never voted, but I mean, I had to provide documentation that they had never voted so they didn't get prosecuted because we have everybody's voter history. It shows every election you voted in. And mine's fabulous, I'll tell you. Could you imagine a county clerk that didn't vote in an election? That would be bad. Well, I'd still vote. So the question is, does it happen when you renew a driver's license? I don't know if you've had to renew your driver's license recently, but you have to bring your birth certificate in and prove that you're a citizen and you get the gold star on there. The real ID that shows that you're a citizen. I had to bring my passport, but if you like a woman, it's a little bit more difficult. If you've been married, then you have to bring your marriage license. If you changed your name and got married and divorced and married and divorced and married and divorced, you'd have to bring all of that documentation to the Secretary of State. So any of us that have that gold star on our driver's license, the real ID, we have proven already that we are US citizens. So the question is, if you voted absentee most of the time and then you vote in person, which you obviously can vote in person anytime you want. When you were on the permanent absentee list that you signed up for with your clerk, they would send you an application automatically. Law has changed that there's permanent absentees that might get, I think they still get an application, but if you change it and say you want a ballot, if you automatically get that ballot. Now your option there is, do I want to vote absentee? Do I want to go to an early voting site and vote my absentee ballot in the early voting site? Or do I want to go to the clerk and say, here, I don't want this absentee early voting ballot. I want to vote in person on election day, which should give you a different ballot, I think. We're still working that out. Check with. No, she thought she might be screwing something up. I'm not trying to repeat this to them. No, just because you got an application doesn't mean you have to request an absentee ballot. Now with proposal 2, things are going to be different and it'll look different than it did in the past. But in the past, a whole bunch of different groups were sending out applications looking like you get like 6 or 7 applications to vote because they got your name and they want you to vote. And so you've got the political parties, you've got these special interest groups, and then you had the clerk and the Secretary of State sending these applications. 2020 people were so confused. They thought they were getting ballots. They were not getting ballots. They were getting applications. Now, if you're going to be on the permanent ballot list, you'll get one ballot. You can't get another ballot unless they spoil that ballot they gave you. It's not possible for them to even issue another ballot because the system won't let them send another ballot to you. That's one of our safeguards. I mean, you don't want 2 ballots. Sounds like that's the way it's going to go next year. We're still working on this. The state has given us 0 guidance on, here's the law and this is what we're going to have to do, but they don't have best practices yet. 2024 could be like, you might see it one way and then in 2025 or 2026, it might look totally different because they said, well, that didn't work very well. Or that was fabulous and we're going to just do it like that all the time. We are trying to come up with best practices. Security is one of our biggest issues. We're very into security. I've got cameras that are going everywhere, even in my board of canvassers room. A lot of the clerks have cameras. We're just, we're beefing up our security of elections as much as we can. We've asked for state grants to help with that. Just to make sure that everybody feels safe and secure and feels their vote counts, which it does. It did. Well, I don't know about that. I can't get them to clean the carpet. I don't know if they do either, to be honest. Yeah, you don't know what somebody does unless you're working in that office or you're doing the job. You don't have, I would have never, when I was 18, 20 years old, if they said you might be a county clerk one day, I would have went, what the heck is that? And I doubt it. But I do love my job. And mine is I have more variety than a lot, like the treasurer is more fine-tuned into the financial, and register of deeds is all land documents. And then they say, well, when in doubt, just give it to the county clerk to handle, because we don't know who to give it to. So that's why the county clerk ended up with so many different varied duties and responsibilities. Well, thanks. I still like it. I'm still here. Yes. Yep, that you had to do that is in effect, like, I think it's this year, sorry, I think it's this year that, you're not gonna be able to fly domestically without this, yeah, the star on here. Me too. So they were trying to get everybody, and they have a deadline that you have to go in there and get that star on there, and usually it was within your renewal time. I think it's October. I think it is October of this year. That you have to have that. Well, a US passport, you've already proved you're a US citizen to get a US passport, so that works really easily. Or you have to go in there to get your, the Secretary of State will say, they want your birth certificate. And then, like I said, if your name has changed due to marriage or divorce, any time throughout since birth, you'll need to bring those documents too to show the chain of names, even though they haven't, because you obviously changed your name with them once, right? When you got married, if you took your husband's name, you changed your name. But yeah, you have to show all that. The passport was the easiest for me, but yeah. My husband's also has a little word that says veteran on it. So yeah, anybody, you know, real ID is important, or you're not going to get on a plane in the United States, go anywhere domestic without it. Sole domestic. Now, passports, obviously that would work, and that'll take you out of the country. But if you're just flying, like I want to fly to Denver, I don't have a passport. Well, if you don't have that gold star on your driver's license, you can't fly. So the people that are not citizens would have to take their passport, obviously. You know, if you're from Canada. What's the question? Oh, an enhanced driver's license is sort of like a passport, but you can only go by boat or land to Canada or Mexico with an enhanced driver's license. So it's a little bit cheaper than a passport. It's lasts maybe 4 years instead of the 10 years. And you can't fly with that. If you're going to Canada and you say, oh, I want to get on a plane and fly to Toronto, you can't fly with that driver's license, but you could drive in with an enhanced driver's license, or you could take a boat, paddle in. Yeah, if you think you can canoe across, you just go for it. My husband and I just took a trip up to Nova Scotia area, and boy, it's pretty up there. But they, you know, we had to have our passports. We didn't have to because we were driving, but the passports make it so much easier. I think eventually everybody will want to have a passport just because people travel so much more than they used to, you know, even 20, 30 years ago. So, yep. We good? Okay. You're welcome. Didn't know it. I was going to talk about all things besides the genealogy. Yeah. All right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. We have one more short program from our newer member, Vicky Stoll, and her program is Stories Behind the Stars.
Okay.
Thank you for having me today. Again, my name is Vicki Stoll. I'm a new member. I'm a new resident of Traverse City as well. Lifelong genealogist, and probably like most of you, I love research. So probably have that in common. So have you ever heard the expression, you die twice? You die the first time when you take your final breath, and you die the second time when no one remembers your name. And as genealogists, we all strive, I think, to ensure that our ancestors' names are never forgotten. And perhaps that's why Stories Behind the Stars was so intriguing to me. Stories Behind the Stars' mission is to write brief memorials for all of the U.S. fallen during World War II so that their names and sacrifices are not forgotten. So a little bit about Stories Behind the Stars. It was started in 2016 by a gentleman named Don Milne. He began writing short stories of World War II fallen in remembrance in honor of the 75th anniversary of Pearl Harbor. By February of 2020, Don had created the Stories Behind the Stars nonprofit initiative to organize one central digital location to collect all of these stories. As of August of this year, 34,000 stories have been created. The memorials include U.S. fallen who perished on D-Day, World War II buried at Arlington National Cemetery, and those who perished at Pearl Harbor. So why is this called Stories Behind the Stars? During World War I, banners with blue stars were hung in windows. The blue star represents a family member who was serving in the war. Some of the flags might have 1 star, some might have 3 stars, 2 stars, symbolizing all who were missing in the family at that time. If a family member died during service, those blue stars were covered with gold stars. These families of the fallen soon became known as the Gold Star families. After the war, the Gold Star mothers banded together. The group incorporated in 1928. By 1936, the United States recognized the last Sunday in September as Gold Star Mother's Day. And coincidentally, this coming Sunday is Gold Star Mother's Day. Gold Star Family Organization still exists today and provides support to those grieving any military loss while serving in active duty. And this is where Stories Behind the Stars takes its name. So I'm wondering, how many of you have ever been to Veterans Memorial Park over on 11th Street? You've probably noticed this statue there then. This is a Gold Star mother. You can see her sitting there. She's holding a flag as if she's holding at a funeral. She's one of only 4 in the country. It's really moving if you've never been there. In front of her are memorials, and on the memorial stones, there's names of all of the fallen from the area for the different wars. And they do include World War II. And on a personal note, I'm working to ensure that all of our areas fallen are memorialized. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about 3 of those today. This is Lawrence Alto. Lawrence loved aviation. While attending Traverse City High School, he was president of the Aviation Theory and Model Airplane Club. Lawrence was quite athletic. He participated in football, boxing, wrestling, and tumbling. Following high school, Lawrence enlisted in the U.S. Air Corps and began glider pilot training. In March of 1944, Lawrence, as part of the 440th Troop Carrier, 95th Troop Carrier Squadron, left the U.S. for the European theater. On August 16, 1944, while carrying out a tow mission in southern France as part of Operation Bigot Dagoon, Lawrence's glider crashed into a grape field and Lawrence was killed. For his courage, unusual flying skills, and deep devotion to duty, Lawrence was awarded the Air Medal, which was presented to him, his father, at Selfridge Air Force Base. Lawrence's remains were returned to the U.S. in spring of 1948. He is buried at the Oakwood Cemetery here in Traverse City. This is Thomas Herbert Benson. He was born in 1921 in Crookstown, Minnesota. to Bourne and Elaine Benson. Thomas was a high school athlete, played both football and basketball. Following graduation, Thomas moved to Michigan and began working as a salesman for state roofers out of Muskegon. In 1942, he married his wife, Margaret, settled in Traverse City, and had a daughter later that year. In January of 1943, shortly after the birth of his daughter, Thomas enlisted in the Army. For the next year and a half, Thomas attended training in Oklahoma with the 410th Infantry 103rd Division. In October 1944, the division departed the U.S. aboard the USS General J.R. Brooke for France. Private First Class Benson, as part of the anti-tank company, worked as a pioneer, responsible for facilitating movement of the unit by creating bridges and constructing roads. On March 5, 1945, Private First Class Benson was accidentally killed by friendly fire. His remains were interred at the Epinal American Cemetery in France. This fall, a French student from a local middle school will be adopting his grave in appreciation and remembrance of his sacrifice. The last one here, this is Manfred Deal. He was born in 1917 in Washington State. Growing up, Manfred's family moved around several times before settling in Williamsburg in 1932. By April 1940, Manfred had graduated from high school and was working at an auto parts company in Williamsburg. Later that year, Manfred moved to East Detroit and began working for Chrysler. In March of 1942, Manfred enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Corps at Fort Custer. Following his training, Manfred was assigned to the 68th Bomber Squadron as a gunner on a B-24 Liberator. The name of the plane he was assigned to was called the Rugged Buggy. That's a little picture of its insignia right there. By October 1942, the 86th Bomber Squadron was stationed in Norfolk, England, and in November 1942, the Rugged Buggy began flying missions over France. On January 27, 1943, the Rugged Buggy, while on a mission, was hit by enemy fire. Manfred was killed by a bullet instantly. The plane was badly damaged, however, the pilot was able to return the plane safely to the base. Although Sergeant Manfred Deal is memorialized by a gravestone at Memorial Gardens here in Traverse City, his remains were buried at the Cambridge American Cemetery in England. For his sacrifice, Manfred was awarded the Silver Star, the Air Medal, and the Purple Heart. During the war, over 421,000 Americans died. More than 15,000 of those were from Michigan, including some from Grand Traverse. And here are some photos of some gentlemen here that were from Grand Traverse area. With so many stories to tell, how is Stories Behind the Stars ensuring that the fallen are not forgotten? First, volunteers are creating obituary-style stories, 400 to 1,000 words. They're short. They're not many biographies, basically just a kind of like an obituary, a little extended. The stories can include a little information on the fallen's early life, education, career, personal life, military career, death, and burial. Writing a story usually takes 2 or 3 hours, although some people get really immersed in the research and interested, going down rabbit holes like I know most of you probably do when you do your genealogy. You get more involved and do a little bit more. So that's the first part. The second part, Stories Behind the Stars, is making sure all the stories are easily accessible to future generations. Volunteers are saving their stories on Fold3. These stories can be easily accessed using Find a Grave app on a smartphone and by clicking the Fold3 link. The goal is to complete a story for each of the fallen by September 2nd, 2025. That's the 80th anniversary of the war's end. And to do this, many volunteers are needed. And the good news is anybody can volunteer. Currently, there are over 1,000 volunteers from all 50 states within a dozen countries. Volunteers come from all ages and backgrounds and experience levels. When I began writing stories, I'd never done any military research aside from looking at stuff on Ancestry, and I had ordered a few things from the National Archives. I was really surprised to find out how much information there is online without ordering records from the National Archives. So if you are interested in volunteering, there are multiple ways you can volunteer. You can research and write stories of the fallen. Even one story makes a difference. You can work as an individual, you could work as a team. For example, if you love researching and you have a friend that loves to write, you could work together to make it to create a memorial. You can also volunteer to act as a reviewer to help others, writers improve their content. Stories Behind the Stars is always looking for people with special skills in public relations, app development, and other things. However, if none of these activities sound like they're for you, I could also use help doing local research for some of the fallen from the area. To assist anyone wanting to volunteer, Stories Behind the Stars have an online boot camp with videos, tip sheets, simple directions to get volunteers going. It's really easy. There's a lot of support there. There's also a great Facebook page for members. And the members there are always willing to help, answer questions, help with research. And locally, I'm available to help. And there is also a state director. And finally, if you'd like to volunteer, we'd love to have you. I'd love to have you. To get started, you can go to this website up there, Stories Behind the Stars. When you leave, if you're interested, there's flyers in the back with my contact information, also with this website, and a little bit more information on Stories Behind the Stars. It's back there on the table when you leave. If you choose to go to their website, there's a little link. You just click volunteer, you fill it out, and they'll send you a welcome email with a little bit of information on how you get started. And eventually, if you did want to research Grand Traverse, they direct you back to me, and I would help you with the soldier's name. And if you don't feel comfortable working on memorials, but like to volunteer with local research, you can contact me. And again, my contact information is back there. And finally, if you have any friends, family who might be interested in volunteering, please share our information with them. We would really appreciate it. And that's all I have. And I want to thank you. And if there's questions. On Zoom. Okay. My name is Vicki Stoll. My email address is VSTOL, my last name, 2016@gmail.com. And I'd be happy to answer any questions by email if you have any concerns or questions. Yes.
Have you approached the Legion?
I have not yet. I plan on doing that. My husband's a member, and I plan on going to the Legion and the VFW as well.
I'll invite you to the Old Mission one.
Oh, I've not gone to that one. Okay, great. Thank you. This is right now just World War II. There's 421,000 fallen just from World War II, U.S. fallen. So they're all the service branches, even the merchant marines and civilians who were killed as part of the war are being memorialized. Anybody else?
How many people in Traverse City are involved?
In Grand Traverse right now on the list of the fallen, you mean?
That are helping you?
I'm the only one so far. So I just started this summer myself writing, and I've done, I don't know, probably 10, but I have other ones that I've started. There's about 100 from our area fallen from Grand Traverse County. There are many more from Leelanau, Benzie, the area around here, and I'm involved with all that as well. Yes.
You died twice. Where's that quote from?
You know, I wish I knew.
Say it again.
Yes. You die twice. First, when you take your final breath, and a second time when no one remembers your name. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate you taking the time to listen.
Thank you, Vicki. Hopefully you'll get some volunteers. Okay, we just have a couple of announcements, but first we're going to have Anna. A little
So I was contacted as the info@gtags.org by someone that said this quilt was at the Goodwill and up for auction. And so I thought certainly someone from this family would like this quilt. So I bought it, brought it from Oklahoma to Michigan, and I would like to locate someone in this family because I just can't imagine. There's on the back of, yeah, on the back corner, there's a key. There's a key that explains what generation each person name. I mean, it's very detailed, and I just can't imagine that somebody wouldn't treasure this. No, it was for sale in auction at the Grand Traverse Goodwill. It's just, I was in Oklahoma at the time, so when I bought it, I had to have it shipped to me. Oh, I don't know if anybody would be interested in trying to locate someone in this family. I have not had time. I'm doing so many other things. I really haven't had time to do that. But yes, it's all color coded by what generation. So. Stone family. Anybody that would like to take?
Okay, thank you, Anna. Just a couple quick things. Our October presentation is the 26th, and that will be Kathy Catoni from Lyon Township Library speaking about beginning Irish research. Family History Month coming up. Michigan Genealogical Council, November 4. If you go onto their website, michiganmgc.org, they are having a live program all day long that Saturday, or Zoom. You can sign up for either one. And the main presenter is Michael Strauss, and it's all military records. 4 different programs he's going to present. One more thing, Family Search Roots Tech. They've opened the registration for that. That will be February 29 through March 2 of 2024. Once again, in person or Zoom. Zoom is free. If you go out to Salt Lake, right now the registration for all 3 days is $99, for all 3 days access. So that's a pretty good price. And you can actually register from the Family Search website or just Google Roots Tech 2024, and that will come up. That's about all I have, and have a good month, and we'll see you in October.